Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. They always tell you not to leave the marked trails. I guess I should have listened. It was last fall, early October, when the leaves turn into fire and the air smells like something between rain and cold earth. I had taken some time off work to go hiking alone, just me and the woods, trying to clear my head. Shenandoah had always been a favorite spot. Endless trails, towering trees, rivers that whisper when the wind shifts just right. 6 miles off the main trail, I was feeling good, even cocky like the king of my own little world. By the time the sun began to slip behind the trees, I figured I should set up camp. That's when I saw it, a soft, flickering light, weaving between the trees like a moth drunk on fire. At first, I thought it was another hiker, maybe someone who knew the woods better than I did, maybe even a ranger. The light bobbed gently, like someone carrying an old lantern. A real one, too, the yellow kind you picture in ghost stories. "Hey," I called out, waving my arms. The light didn't stop, didn't even slow down. It just kept drifting deeper into the woods. Now, I'm not an idiot. I know following strange lights in strange woods is how horror stories start. But standing there, under the dying light of the day, with that lantern swinging so invitingly, curiosity sank its teeth into me. I should have camped right there. I should have let it go. But I didn't. I followed. The woods grew thicker with every step. The trees pressed in closer, like they were leaning down to listen to my breathing. Twigs snapped underfoot. Brambles clawed at my legs. I lost track of time chasing that damn light, but it couldn't have been more than 15 minutes before the ground changed under me. At first, I thought it was just swampy earth, maybe a flooded patch from a recent rain. My boots sank slightly with each step, the ground soft and spongy like a mattress left out in the rain. Then I looked down. It wasn't swamp. It wasn't mud. It was wood, rotted, broken, black with mold. And underneath that wood, the earth had caved in. An old house, forgotten by time, swallowed by the forest like some giant, dead thing. The lantern hovered a few feet ahead, bobbing slightly, waiting for me. That's when the fear hit me. Not a normal fear. Not the kind that makes your heart race. This fear was thick and wet and ancient, and it wrapped around me like a noose. I wasn't supposed to be here. I knew it like you know the moment you step on thin ice. The lantern started to circle me, slowly, lazily, like it was sizing me up. There was no hand holding it, no arm, no person, just a light spinning in slow, deliberate arcs. The air around me went sharp and brittle, like stepping into a freezer. The whispering started next, soft at first, so soft I thought it was the wind teasing the leaves. But it wasn't the wind. The trees were whispering. My name. I swear to you, they were whispering my name. I turned and ran. I didn't look back. I didn't care where the trail was anymore. I just ran. The ground beneath me shifted and groaned. Branches lashed at my face. I didn't care. Every time I stumbled, every time I gasped for air, I could feel behind me. The light, staying just out of reach, teasing me, pulling me deeper. Somewhere in that panic sprint, my flashlight died. Then my phone. No service. No GPS. No clock. Only me and the endless dark. The woods weren't the same anymore. The trees twisted into shapes I couldn't recognize. The stars above seemed farther away, like they were watching from behind a dirty window. And the whispering never stopped. It took 6 hours, 6 hours of blind stumbling, crying, praying, for me to find the trail again. When I saw the thin, silver strip of the highway through the trees, I broke down and sobbed. I didn't even think about my car keys. I didn't think about anything except putting as much distance between me and whatever was in those woods. When I finally reached my car, battered, bloodied from a dozen cuts, my hand shook so badly I could barely jam the key into the ignition. I cranked the engine. It coughed to life, and I slammed the gas pedal like a man possessed. 5 miles down the road, when my heart finally stopped trying to claw out of my chest, my phone buzzed. The screen lit up like nothing had ever been wrong. Battery full. One notification. A photo. It wasn't a photo I had taken. It wasn't even something I remembered seeing. It was a shot from above, me, curled up and sleeping inside the rotten remains of the house. And above me, inches from my face, the lantern floated, burning cold and bright. I stared at that photo for what felt like forever. Then the phone went dead again. I threw it out the window. I never went back to Shenandoah. Hell, I barely leave town anymore. Sometimes, though, on certain nights when the sky is heavy and the world feels just a little too quiet, I swear I see a flicker of light, weaving between the trees at the edge of town, waiting, still waiting. And this time, I know better than to follow. Story 2. It was 3 years ago when I went camping in the Oregon wilderness with a couple of friends. The kind of place where your phone screen just goes black, and you're lucky if you even hear a plane overhead. The air was thick with the scent of pine, the ground soft with decaying leaves, and for miles, there wasn't another soul around. That's what made it feel like such an escape, pure isolation. But the thing is, I should have known better. Nature is beautiful, but it isn't always kind. The first night, we made camp as the sun dipped low, leaving the woods drenched in this eerie twilight. The kind where every shadow seems a little too deep, and the sounds of the forest seem like they're hiding something. We set up our tents and huddled around the fire, talking, laughing, and acting like nothing could go wrong. Around 2 a.m., I was woken by a sound I couldn't place. It was soft at first, like a quiet whimpering, or maybe crying. I turned over, figuring it was just one of my friends messing around. Maybe one of them pretending to be scared or pulling some prank. But then it kept going. The sound was human. It was a cry, not a scream, but like someone was in pain, helpless. I lay there, heart hammering in my chest, trying to tell myself it was nothing. After a minute, I couldn't take it anymore. I unzipped my tent, stepping into the cold air. I didn't see anything at first, just a dark stretch of trees. But then about 20 feet away, I saw it. A massive, gnarled oak tree that looked like something out of a nightmare. Its bark twisted and knotted like old leather, the branches barely hanging on, and something was dripping from it. The whimpering came again, louder this time, almost pleading. I wasn't sure what to do, but I felt like I had to find out. There was a voice in the back of my mind, a voice that said, "Don't go near it." But curiosity is a funny thing. It makes you think you can handle things, that you'll be fine, even when everything inside you tells you to run. I walked closer to the tree. The closer I got, the more I could see. Something dark was leaking from a crack in the trunk. It looked like blood, thick and wet, dripping onto the ground. And that's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was my mind playing tricks on me, but no, it was real. A small hand, a child's hand, reached out from the crack in the tree. It was pale, too pale, and it trembled as it reached toward me, its fingers stretching, desperate. My breath caught in my throat. I froze, unsure what to do, but the instinct to get the hell out of there kicked in. I turned to run back to the camp. But when I did, that's when the nightmare really began. The campsite was gone. One moment, I was standing there, looking at my tent, my friends' tents, the fire still flickering in the distance. But when I turned back, everything had changed. The fire was out. There was no sign of our tents. Just endless rows of trees, towering above me like silent giants, their branches twisting into the sky. I looked around, my breath coming fast, panic rising in my chest. How could I lose the campsite so quickly? The woods weren't that big. I looked back at the oak tree. The small hand was still there, but now it was waving weakly at me, beckoning me closer. And the tree, it had moaned, a deep, rumbling sound that shook me to my core. It was like the tree was alive, and it was sick. The ground beneath my feet seemed to soften, like it was swallowing me up. I didn't know what to do, but everything in me screamed to run. I took a step back, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. I stumbled, tripping on my own feet, and then everything just went dark. I don't know how long I was out. When I woke up, the sun was just beginning to rise, casting a pale, golden light over the forest. The smell of pine was heavy in the air, and the sound of the wind brushing through the trees was almost peaceful. I was back in my tent. My friends were still snoring, just like they had been the night before. I didn't tell them what happened. I didn't want to sound crazy, but I knew what I'd seen. I knew what had happened. The woods didn't care about me, or my friends, or a little campfire. It had its own rules, and it wasn't interested in explaining them. The next day, we took pictures around the camp, the kind you always take to remember a trip. Everyone was smiling, carefree. But when I went through the photos later that night, I froze. There in every single shot was something I couldn't explain. In the background of each photo, there was a small shadow clinging to my back. It wasn't a trick of the light. It wasn't a blur. It was a figure smaller than a child, almost like it was trying to crawl inside me. The figure was dark, formless, but unmistakable. I couldn't tell anyone. Not then, not after we left. But I know what I saw. And sometimes, even now, when I'm walking through the woods, I feel it, something watching me. That hand, that small, pale hand, still reaching out, still trying to pull me back into the trees. And sometimes, when I think about it too long, I hear the whimpering again. Faint, almost lost in the wind. It's always there, waiting. The crying tree never lets go. Story 3. 2 winters ago, my uncle let me use his cabin deep in the Smoky Mountains. It was a place I'd always wanted to visit. Secluded, off the grid, miles from the nearest neighbor, with nothing but the forest to keep you company. He said I could stay as long as I wanted, a little time to get away from everything, to clear my head. So, I took him up on it. I packed my bags, drove out, and spent the first few hours just soaking in the quiet. The kind of quiet you can't find anywhere else. No cars, no people, just the trees and the snow. It was my kind of peace. The cabin itself wasn't much. A small wooden building that looked like it had been there for decades. The wood was gray and worn, and the roof sagged just a little under the weight of the snow. Inside, it was simple, rustic I guess you'd call it. A couch, a small kitchen, a fireplace that looked like it could tell 1,000 stories. It had that old, musty smell you get from places that have been abandoned for too long, but it felt homey, cozy in a way. The first night was calm. I cooked some dinner, cracked open a beer, and sat by the fire, watching the flames dance. I should have known better, though. That's the thing about isolation. You get comfortable, but it has a way of luring you into a false sense of security, as if the world outside the cabin doesn't exist. The thing is, the woods are never silent. They just sounded silent. The wind was always there, whispering through the trees, but it was more of a hum than a howl. Nothing to make you nervous, or so I thought. That night, after the fire died down, I turned in early. I pulled the blankets tight around me and drifted into sleep, the crackling of the fire still echoing in my head. I woke up a few hours later, not to a sound, but to a feeling that I wasn't alone. Something wasn't right. I lay still in bed, trying to tell myself it was just the isolation playing tricks on me. But the feeling wouldn't go away. It felt like someone was watching me, like eyes were boring into the back of my head. My heart started a race, and I couldn't shake the thought that there was something out there, something waiting. I forced myself to roll over and glance out the frosted window beside my bed. That's when I saw it. A figure, standing just beyond the tree line. A massive stag, its antlers so wide they seemed to brush the tops of the trees. Its body was thick and powerful, its fur dark as the night sky. But what struck me wasn't its size or its beauty. It was the way it stood there, motionless, staring right at me. Those dark eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight, and for a moment, I swear it knew exactly what I was thinking. I don't know how long I stared back at it, but eventually my eyes fluttered shut and I fell into an uneasy sleep. The thing was, I knew it wasn't just my imagination. I could still feel those eyes on me, even in the dark. It wasn't until I heard the sound that I knew something had changed. It was around midnight when I was jerked awake. The sound was faint at first, but it grew louder, scraping against the wooden door of the cabin. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just some animal rummaging around, but it wasn't like any animal sound I'd ever heard. It was methodical, almost deliberate, like something was testing the door. Scratch, scratch, scratch. I grabbed the fireplace poker beside my bed, my hands trembling with that sudden, sharp fear that comes when you know something's wrong, but can't quite place it. I crept toward the door, my breath shallow, barely making a sound. I didn't even want to breathe. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, listening to the scraping. It was getting closer. The thing was still out there. I swung the door open as fast as I could, the poker held high, ready to strike. But when I looked out, there was nothing. No animal, no person, just the empty, snow-covered ground. I stepped outside, the cold air biting at my skin, and scanned the area. There at the edge of the woods, I saw it again. The stag, its massive form stood like a shadow, perfectly still, just beyond the trees. And this time, it wasn't alone. It had split down the middle, not in the way an animal's body might be torn open. No, this was different. The stag's body was unzipped, like a coat or a piece of clothing, and inside was something wrong. Pale, twisted arms, hundreds of them, writhing in the open air. They reached out from the stag's chest, each one looking like it was trying to grab hold of something, of me. I froze. My blood ran cold. The stag didn't move. It didn't need to. It just stood there, watching me, the arms twisting and shifting beneath its torn body. I slammed the door shut, bolted it, and backed away, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I couldn't. I stayed by the fire, my eyes glued to the windows, expecting to see those glowing eyes watching me at any moment. The next morning, I gathered what little courage I had left and stepped outside to inspect the cabin. There was snow everywhere, untouched except for the marks on the door. Deep gouges like something had scratched them, running up and down the wood. But that wasn't the worst part. Above the door frame, carved perfectly into the wood, were the words, "You were warned." I didn't stick around to try to figure out what that meant. I packed up my things, and I left the cabin behind without a second thought. I didn't even bother telling my uncle what had happened. There was no point. He wouldn't have believed me anyway. But I know what I saw, and I know what I felt. The stag was still out there, and it wasn't just a warning. It was a promise. If you ever find yourself in those mountains in the dead of winter, listen for the sound of scratching at the door, because you might not be alone. Story 4. Last summer, I took a trip to the Black Hills, hoping to get away from everything, to find myself, as cliche as it sounds. It was supposed to be a solitary thing. No distractions, just me and the wilderness. At least, that's what I told myself. The truth was, I was trying to escape my own thoughts. I needed peace, clarity, something that felt real. I've been hiking for hours, the kind of trek that leaves you breathless, not from exhaustion, but from the overwhelming weight of silence. The Black Hills have a way of making you feel like you're the only one left in the world. No sounds, just the wind rustling through the trees, distant calls of birds, and the crunch of leaves beneath my boots. It was comforting in a way, but also eerie. That evening, I found a spot just off the beaten path, a small clearing surrounded by towering pine trees. There was a small creek running nearby, its water gurgling softly in the background. Perfect, I thought. The kind of place you could build a fire and fall asleep under the stars without worrying about anything. I set up camp, getting the fire going. The crackle of the wood was the only sound for a while. I didn't mind. I had a book in my bag, but I couldn't focus on the pages. Something about the forest felt off. The air was heavy, like it was pressing down on me. I brushed it off. Maybe I was just tired. That's when I first heard it. A low whisper, barely audible. I stopped. The crackling of the fire seemed to fade, and the wind stilled for a moment. I leaned forward, straining to hear it again. Another whisper, but this time it was clearer. I could make out words. No, not words. Voices. Men, women, children. The voices rose and fell, speaking over each other like a conversation I wasn't invited to. I turned around, expecting to see someone, maybe another camper, but no one was there. The clearing was empty, save for the trees and the fire. My skin prickled. a strange unease creeping up my spine. The voices came again, this time louder, closer. They were coming from underneath the ground. I crouched down beside the fire and pressed my ear to the earth, my heart thudding in my chest. The ground was cool, and there was a slight vibration beneath the surface, as if something was moving just below. The voices, they were chanting, not in any language I knew, but chanting all the same, rhythmic and unnatural. I could feel my stomach churn, nausea rising in my throat. The sound was overwhelming, like hundreds of voices pouring out of the earth itself. It felt like it was coming from the very roots of the trees. I jerked back, stumbling to my feet, my heart racing. What the hell was going on? I looked around, trying to make sense of it, but all I saw was the darkened forest surrounding me. The trees, which had been standing tall and unmoving, seemed different now. I blinked, but the feeling wouldn't go away. They were closer, much closer. I glanced at the trees again, and that's when I saw it. The trunks of the pines were shifting, bending ever so slightly, as if they were breathing. The wind picked up again, but the trees didn't sway in time with it. They weren't reacting like they should. They were alive, aware, and moving ever so slightly toward me. I took a step back, then another. The fire flickered, the flames dancing wildly, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw something in the shadows. Faces. Faces. They were floating just behind the branches, not attached to any bodies, pale and distorted. Eyes wide, unblinking, watching me. I froze. The whispering had stopped, but the faces, they lingered. Their expressions were empty, emotionless, yet full of a strange kind of hunger. I didn't know what they wanted, but I could feel it deep in my bones. Their gaze was pulling at me, demanding something, as if I was the one who had disturbed them. I had to get out of there. I turned and bolted, abandoning my tent, my gear, everything. The fire crackled behind me, but the faces and the whispers followed, trailing just out of sight. The ground seemed to rise up beneath my feet, the trees leaning closer as I ran, like they were trying to trap me, to keep me within their reach. My breath came in sharp gasps, the only sound besides the pounding of my feet on the earth. The forest was closing in on me. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My legs burned as I pushed myself harder, crashing through the underbrush, the branches scratching at my skin. The darkness around me seemed to grow thicker with each step, the trees looming like giants in the periphery of my vision. But I kept going. I didn't stop. Finally, after what felt like hours, I broke through the trees and onto the main road. My chest heaved with exhaustion, my mind spinning in confusion. I stumbled down the gravel path, not knowing where I was going, just desperate to be away from that place. I flagged down the first vehicle I saw, an old truck, rattling and swaying as it came toward me. The driver slammed on the brakes, clearly startled by my wild appearance. I must have looked insane, standing there, out of breath, my face pale with fear. I didn't care. I needed help. The driver rolled down his window, eyeing me suspiciously. "You lost, son?" he asked. I tried to explain, tried to tell him what had happened, but the words came out in a jumbled mess. I couldn't make him understand. All I could do was point toward the woods behind me, but when I did, he just looked at me like I was crazy. "There's nothing back there. he said, his voice flat. That whole part of the forest burned down 20 years ago. There shouldn't be any trees there at all. My heart sank. What the hell was I running from, man? What'd I seen? I didn't stay long enough to ask. I climbed into the truck, and the driver didn't say another word as we drove away from the Black Hills. But the truth is, I didn't need an explanation. I knew what I had seen, what I had felt, and I knew it was still out there, waiting. To this day, I can't go near the Black Hills. The voices, the faces, the trees, they're still with me, lingering in the back of my mind, always whispering, always watching. The forest breathes, and it will never let me forget.